until you focus on the learning about the faith, you don't know anything. You don't know what the point of the religion is, and that is something for sure was missing. I had no idea. Every question I had that I asked about Islam had an answer, and I had an answer that just felt right in my heart. Every single time there was an answer, and I read over and over, when you're supplicating, that is when you're closest to Allah. And as I prayed more, felt myself become closer to Allah in those moments. And I loved those moments. I think that is what brought me, in the spiritual sense, into Islam. It's given me a calm, and it's given me a patience which I never really had before. If I wait too long, it might be too late. Anything could happen. And just in that moment, I decided, do you know what? I have the faith in my heart. I love Allah. I'm just going to commit to this. Why wait and take the risk that something could happen to me and I won't get the chance?
Today's guest is from London. He's originally from Ireland. He's a maths teacher at a secondary school, and he converted to Islam only a few weeks ago in 2020. His Islamic name is Abdullah. Abdullah, nice to meet you. Welcome to the show.
Assalamu alaikum. It's good to be here.
Yes, peace be upon you too. Thank you for joining us, Abdullah.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, like I said.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about yourself, about your life, where you're at now, before you get into your revert and convert story.
Well, as you were saying, I'm a secondary school teacher. I teach maths. Obviously, my life is a bit complicated at the minute due to the whole coronavirus situation. Alhamdulillah, I have my health, my family have their health, and I'm able to work from home and teach remotely, which is just, it's a blessing, really. And it's given, I think, everyone this opportunity to centralize their life around worship and prayer in a way that is so difficult when we have to go into work and everything, you know?
Definitely, yeah, I agree with you 100% on that. Okay, so you said you only converted to Islam a few weeks ago.
Indeed, yeah.
Can you tell us, a little bit about your story and how you came to Islam?
My upbringing was very non-religious. My parents are both agnostic, and throughout my childhood I never really was introduced to religion that much, and there was always this sort of gap, something missing in my life, and it wasn't until I started a new job last year, September. I met a new friend, and we were getting to know each other, and we went out for a coffee, and we ended up talking about religion in general. We were talking about various different faiths. We were talking about Islam, we were talking about Christianity, we were talking about Hinduism, we were talking about all these different faiths and what the core elements of those faiths are, and just the passion with which they were speaking about Islam and how much it had filled their heart. It inspired me to learn more and to really try and engage more with religion, because it did fill this gap in my life. When I started to read more, when I started to learn more, I gained this appreciation for what faith gives you. And I think that's so important when we're talking to people who need to learn about religion, who maybe haven't engaged with it, who've never been able to research it. They don't know what's missing in their life. To see someone with this passion for it, this inspiring presence that they love Allah so much, it gives you that way to fill that hole in your life. And in a way, it is this idea of fitra. It's this underlying desire and need for faith and need to love Allah, and this need to do good in us, which so often we deny when we haven't engaged with faith. It's so important to have that person who shows you the inspiration, shows you the passion, so you can see that in yourself as well.
So you mentioned that last year in September you met you were talking with this Muslim. Would you consider that your first turning point, or were there other events before that which helped you to come to Islam?
I would say that is almost certainly my first turning point. It wasn't really. I had never engaged with religion before. I had never really known what that gap, that hole in my heart was until I met this new friend.
Okay, and can you tell me about your ideas about Islam before that, as you were growing up and through your life?
I mean, honestly, it was complete ignorance. I had no idea what the core elements of Islam are. I mean, you see a hijab, you see how people worship, you see these things, but until you actually learn what the core message is, that there is one God, that we submit to Him, that we pray, until you focus on the learning about the faith, you don't know anything. You don't know what the point of the religion is, and that is something for sure was missing. I had no idea until I met this new friend and started researching.
Okay, and you said that you were mainly agnostic, or your family was agnostic. Can you tell us a little bit about your concept of God back then, and the way you used to communicate with God, or maybe your form of prayer?
So when I say agnostic, I mean we had, God was not in our home. We had very little engagement with it. I remember the only times that I ever engaged in a religious activity were the funerals of my grandparents. Those were the only times that I saw religion before my adult life. And to us, to our family at that point, there was no God, or there was no knowledge of a God. There was no. It was as if we were saying, we don't know, there's no way we can know, so why do we need to try? That was kind of the position that my family have.
And did you ever find yourself praying to God in any way? Maybe when you were in a fix, in a big problem or something. Can you remember anything like this?
I did, yeah. There were several times throughout my life where I was looking to a higher power, and I was looking to a God, and I didn't know who to look to, and I find it so hopeless in those moments. And there were so many times during my life before where I was almost indifferent to life. I was indifferent to death. I was indifferent to everything, and had nothing that would guide me other than myself. And alhamdulillah, I was given this guidance onto the path. I feel blessed that I met my new friend, that they showed me this way onto the path, and I see that as a gift from God, a gift from Allah, that I was shown the way onto this path.
Yeah, that's really nice. How the meeting that you had with this Muslim was something that was sort of a little bit by chance, because for a lot of people that convert, there is some sort of crisis or tension, which makes them sort of turn. Did you experience any of that crisis or tension which made you turn to religion, or was it just this chance sort of occasion?
It was this chance meeting and an appreciation for the blessings that we have, that when you start opening your mind to it, you start seeing the blessings every day. You start being thankful for things every day, and you see opportunities that are given to you every day. And it could be so simple as you walk by someone and they drop something, you pick it up for them. There's an opportunity. There's an opportunity you were gifted in order to be a good person. And these things you don't recognize as blessings, as gifts, until you have faith in your heart.
And so let's go back to that day again, that last September when you met this Muslim friend. Can you tell me a little bit more about it, and what sort of things happened? Was it just one meeting, or was it a series of meetings?
I mean, the initial conversation was just we sat in a cafe. We got a coffee. We were just getting to know. We were both new to the job, so we were getting to know somebody new, and we just ended up on this conversation about faith, about just the comparison, the core elements of each belief. And they had so much more knowledge than I did on every faith that you could possibly think of: monotheistic faiths and polytheistic faiths, all these different faiths. And we talked about things in a way that was much more open than I've ever had in a religious conversation. We spoke for hours, and I was asking questions. Some of the questions I was asking were stupid because I was so ignorant at the time. And every question I had that I asked about Islam had an answer, and I had an answer that just felt right in my heart. Every single time there was an answer. And as I keep asking questions, as I keep looking for answers, there's always one there, and is always supported by hadith. It is always supported by the Quran. And that perfection, that strength in the face of challenging questions, is what really solidified the faith into my heart.
Yeah, for some people, when they accept Islam, or when they're learning about Islam, the logical proofs is really enough for them to accept. For other people, they go through a series of spiritual and emotional changes where it just feels right in their heart without having to go through the logical research. How did you deal with that in that 6-month period between when you met this Muslim and you became Muslim?
I mean, certainly, like you said, the logical, the proof in logic was what brought me in the first place. But that, to me, would not necessarily have been enough as to become a revert, which is why, I mean, I've been practicing a long time before I actually would have considered myself a revert. I was practicing at least since January, doing my best to pray 5 times. I mean, to begin with, it was very difficult to pray 5 times, but there was there's a point when I spent a couple of hours every day reading the words of the prayer and reading the translation of the prayer and trying to connect with why I was making those motions, why I was doing all of those things, because as many Muslims will know, I think every Muslim will know, you have the action of the body in prayer, but then you also have your intention behind it, is what is happening in your mind to your spiritual connection. And one cannot exist without the other. And when I was in supplication, and I find myself every day I would spend longer with my head to the floor. I wouldn't just be saying the words that I needed to say. I would just be there. And that is when I felt what people said. People were telling me this is when you're closest to Allah. I looked up and I read over and over, when you're supplicating, that is when you're closest to Allah. And as I prayed more, I felt myself become closer to Allah in those moments. And I loved those moments. I think that is what brought me, in the spiritual sense, into Islam.
Okay, so you started praying before you converted to Islam. Can you remember why you started doing that?
I felt myself moving towards the faith. I felt myself moving towards the faith, and I decided that I would try and live the faith as I would if I were to convert. I wasn't sure at that time if I was going to convert, and I did not have the faith fully in my heart because I didn't have that spiritual connection yet, like I said. But I decided that I wanted to live through the faith and try and see what it was like. And as I did, it took hold. It really did.
So how did you learn?
So I ordered a Quran online. It was a translation, an English translation, and it had lots of really nice introductory paragraphs as well to each surah. And in the back of that, it had a guide to prayer. It had a guide that would that led you through all of the actions you'd be making, and it was quite simple. It didn't really tell you everything, and some parts of it were better explained than others. But I tried using that for a little while, and then as I prayed more, I decided, okay, I need to really learn how to do this properly. So I started watching videos on YouTube to try and see how I would pray more properly. I think the best thing you can do, which I didn't have the chance to do because of the lockdown, is to go to your local masjid, your mosque, and you will receive a very warm welcome there, and you'll be able to learn properly from them how to pray.
Okay, and you said you started practicing Islam in January. What were some of the other things that you started practicing besides the prayer?
Well, I would be reading Quran every single day. I would read at least one or two surahs every single day, and I would be trying to also link that to the Arabic text. So I'd be reading them in English, but I would also be trying to read the Arabic text and a transliteration, which means it would write it out in the English alphabet, but in the Arabic language. And I would be trying to read that every single day. And I actually, honestly, I wasn't trying to read it. I just wanted to. I needed to. I felt that I really wanted to read it every single day. And I mean, I would also be reading Hadith and trying to research and learn more. I haven't yet been fasting every Monday and Thursday, as a lot of Muslims will do. But it's something that I want to try and bring into my practice as I go forwards.
And speaking of fasting, we have Ramadan coming up this week, at the end of this week. What are your thoughts on Ramadan?
Oh well, I'm a little nervous. I will be spending it alone, which is a bit daunting. It is a time when spending it with family and breaking your fast with family every time it gives you this sense of community and this warmth and this happiness. But I'll be spending it alone, which it is a bit of a daunting thing for me. But I've been told that as you make your way through the month, it gets easier and you feel more connected to Allah. And I really want to to approach it with the correct intentions, because as I was saying before, it's not just the body, you have the mind as well behind it, and without the intention, what the body does isn't really that meaningful. You can fast all day, you can stop yourself from swearing, you can only be kind to one another for a full month, but if you're not doing it with the correct intention that you want to do it for Allah, to give thanks to Allah for sending down the Quran, for bringing you into the faith, then there really isn't a point to fasting. And that's what I really want to bring in.
Yeah, well said. Have you tried an Islamic fast yet?
I have tried a couple of times. I tried a couple of Mondays and Thursdays, and I made it through a couple of times. I did have one failed attempt where I broke my fast. I was having a bit of a bad day. I really should have tried to push through, but I didn't really have the willpower. But I've tried a couple of fasts and only a couple of successful ones.
Okay, and can you describe, what it was like to not have any food or water for probably more than 12 hours?
Yeah, it is. It is difficult, especially I think I've been told when you do it on an individual day, like a Monday and a Thursday, and it's not a prolonged thing like you would do during Ramadan. I've been told that it makes it more difficult because you're used to eating all day every day, and you're used to, sort of letting yourself eat whenever you need to and letting yourself drink whenever you need to. Sometimes if you're in a bad mood, you might snap back at somebody, and then in that way it was tough. I felt myself drained of energy. And when you're so drained of energy, I think a lot of people, when they're hungry, when they're thirsty, they start to get irritable as well. I mean, I found myself getting a bit irritable on those days. And then, of course, that makes the other part of the fast, the being kind and being patient, that part of the fast gets a lot more difficult as well. I think that's something that is very much about doing it on an isolated individual day as well.
Yeah, it can take a few years or many years to get used to it. And there's even some Muslims that, after a long time, many years of fasting their whole life, they still find it hard. So everyone's different. So let's have a look. Let's focus on that period between September, when you met your Muslim friend, and January, when you started practicing. So in that period of September to January, can you tell me a little bit more about sort of what you went through there? What were you doing to try and get closer to God?
Well, it was mainly just factual research. I was researching what people were saying it meant to be a Muslim, and I was researching what it meant to. I mean, I was researching basically what the word Muslim meant, and of course we know that it means submission to God, and it was just a period where I was doing research in that way. I was reading surahs to try and see what it is I could see in each verse, and then there's lots of little beautiful little things that you can get out of even a single ayah or a verse, and there's little examples where I believe there's a verse in Surah Al-Kahf which speaks about the length of time that the boys were in the cave, and it refers to a very interesting way of writing. I believe it was 310 years, something along those lines. But I didn't write it as 310. I wrote it as 310 more. I don't know if the number is perfectly exact, I'm afraid, but this actually corresponds to a conversion between a lunar year and a solar year. And there's little bites of information in there, which I just kept finding these little things, which just the way that things are phrased gives these extra little bits of information. And there's always the guidance to how you should be living your life, how you should be controlling yourself, how you can be more patient, how you can be more kind, how you can overcome difficulties. These things are always appearing all over this. In every surah, in every ayah, you can find some guidance, you can find some information, and sometimes you'll find both at the same time. And it's just a great feeling reading it.
And so how did you conduct this research? Was it just you and a book, or did you go online and looking at websites, or did you try and meet anyone to give you guidance?
I'll be trying to research online most of the time. There are lots and lots of really good resources online. There's lots of people who make really good videos, really good talks. I'd be talking a lot with my friend as well. And sometimes we'd read a surah together and we'd be sort of saying, okay, let's stop on this one. I think I've seen something really interesting here. And just exploring in that way. I would recommend you can look at various speakers. A lot of the ones that are very popular, people like Mufti Menk or Yasser Qadi or Omar Suleiman is very popular as well. I mean, there's loads and loads of people giving information. It's out there, and if you look for it, you will find a lot.
And did you meet any other Muslims before you started practicing in January?
Well, I do live in an area which is very, there's a large Muslim community here. So I have met quite a few actually in my area. I would like to meet more and have a lot more friends in that community. Unfortunately, it's not really the best time to be meeting new people, especially in person. There's lots of ways that you can meet people, especially internationally. You'll find loads of Facebook groups, loads of ways to meet people through Instagram, through Twitter, through anywhere. If you say I'm moving towards Islam, you'll be greeted with open arms. Everyone within the community is so welcoming, as far as I've found. If you say that you're moving towards Islam, or that you've recently become a convert as well, people will just they're so willing and eager to give you help and give you guidance. It's a really warm feeling. Alhamdulillah.
And did you use social media in your quest?
I did. I joined a Facebook group recently, and that's actually how we became acquainted, I believe. And I just made a post there, and I got an almost overwhelming number of messages in response. I was replying to them for like a few days, and I'm still in contact with quite a few of them regularly as well. It's so easy to find if you just look for it.
How long ago did you join the Facebook group?
I would say that was a couple of weeks ago, and that's been. I've still been in contact with, I think, maybe 4 or 5 people from the Facebook group regularly as well. Just we'll exchange little bits of advice, little bits of little things which we find helpful.
Okay, great. And did you have any interaction with the mosque before your conversion?
Unfortunately, no, I didn't. I didn't manage to get there before the lockdown happened. Inshallah, if it ends soon, I'll be there on the first day. but unfortunately, no, I haven't been able to get there.
And so in this short time that you've been a Muslim, can you feel any changes that have happened to you now in your emotions or your personal characteristics?
Absolutely. It's almost I'm almost a completely different person. If I was talking to you 1 year ago, you would barely be able to get a response out of me at all. You would, I would probably have been too anxious to be able to even say yes to coming on a show like this. It's given me a calm, and it's given me a patience which I never really had before. I was not really a hot-headed person, except perhaps for times in my childhood, but I was incredibly anxious, and I was incredibly self-destructive as well. I would be trying to find ways to fill that gap, to try and get rid of this anxiety that would go through me all the time. I would be almost unable to do my job properly, because I'd have days where it would be like something is crushing my chest. And the ways that I looked for to try and fix that, they didn't work. I made music, which was kind of uncomfortable and not very nice to listen to. I made I used to drink frequently, alcohol. I ate unhealthily all the time. I didn't really do any exercise. I was a very unhappy and anxious person. I wasn't someone who had a way to deal with those problems. And now that I have faith, those problems don't really affect me anymore, especially the anxiety. I still have bad days, but on those days I can focus on prayer. I can focus on connecting with Allah, not having to think about how do I do this? How do I fix this? Who will fix this for me? Because I'll have faith that it is a test. I am expected to do something here. I'm expected to either push through and overcome it, or focus on my prayer to calm myself, or to give thanks and show gratitude for all of the things that I have, all of the blessings I have that are so easily taken for granted. And it calms that, and it pushes that to the side.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I remember when I converted, I would be telling people that my life has changed 180%, and it's so true for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's now focus on your day of conversion. Can you tell me what happened on that day?
Well, I had a turning point. I just said to myself, it's time to stop waiting. I need to just commit to this, to say, I am a Muslim. And I said my Shahada, and I said it from the heart with the intention that I am committed. I am going to praise Allah, and I'm going to be the best servant that I can be every day.
And how did you do this? Was this just something you did by yourself?
It was something I did by myself. Once the lockdown ends, I really want to go to the masjid, the mosque, sorry, and I want to have it properly witnessed and everything. But in the current circumstances, it was a challenge to have that happen. I was told, and I was reading that you don't necessarily need to have a witness, but it's preferred. So I will do it formally with a witness at the masjid, because that's something that I really want to do properly.
Okay, and so that day where it happened, were you thinking a few days before that? Were you thinking that it was going to happen, or did it just suddenly happen?
It was a pretty in the moment thing, because I was sitting at home. I was thinking about the whole crisis that's happening right now with coronavirus, and I was thinking, I don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen 2 or 3 hours from now. If I wait too long, it might be too late. Anything could happen. And just in that moment, I decided, do you know what? I have the faith in my heart. I love Allah. I'm just going to commit to this. Why wait and take the risk that something could happen to me and I won't get the chance?
And can you explain how you felt after you did it?
I felt relieved, because that worry that I might not get the chance, that it might be too late, was weighing on me. And I felt relieved, and I felt like myself. Felt like me in a way that I'd never felt before.
And what happens to a lot of people after they convert? There's a phase of the consequences, negative consequences. For you, you probably won't see them yet because you just converted. But for example, negative family, negative friends, and your external environment going against you. Have you ever thought about this?
I have considered it. As I was telling you before, my family are agnostic. I wouldn't consider them hardcore. They're very accepting people, and they do and have always accepted everything that I have chosen as my choice, and they've given me the freedom to make my own choices. For me, I haven't yet spoken with my family about it, because it's a conversation that I would like to have in person, and unfortunately, they do still live back in Ireland, and it's very possible that I won't be able to see them for quite a few months. So I would like to speak with them in person rather than through a phone call or a video call, to talk about it properly and have this discussion. I don't anticipate a negative reaction. I might, some ways I expect confusion, and perhaps some. I'm not sure that they will completely understand, because they have not really engaged with faith, and they don't have a desire to either. I hope that I can show them and other people that I meet the same love for it, and the same engagement with it, and the same inspiration for it that my friend showed me, that gave me that inspiration in my heart.
Okay, Abdullah. So you've given us a lot of good advice so far. For our listeners out there, those that were that are in the same position that you were, can you give them another summary of your best advice for them, and how they should go about becoming a Muslim?
I think the main thing for me is that you do have this fitra, you have this built-in need for faith, for for being a good and kind person. You have that in you, and the biggest hurdle that you're going to face is to stop denying that and to really make yourself informed and give yourself all the information you can. Don't be afraid to ask an uncomfortably large number of questions, because there will always be an answer for you. Even if you ask your questions every time with an open mind and the intention that you actually want the answer, then you will always, always be given an answer, and it will always be a satisfying one. It is important to begin practicing and begin engaging with the life of a Muslim before you rush into converting as well. You should make sure that it is in your heart and your intention is purely to become a Muslim when you convert. There shouldn't be any other reason other than wanting to connect with and to praise Allah. If you're unsure whether your intention is pure, then it might not be. So you need to make sure that intention is purified and make sure that you are completely informed before you do it. But don't wait too long. Anything could happen in the next day, in the next week. We don't have control over that. If you have the faith in your heart, don't wait. Just do it. Just convert, and I assure you, it will improve your life.
Okay, Abdullah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's a really amazing story, and the fact that you only accepted Islam a few weeks ago, and I can see that you have a lot of knowledge. You've done a lot of research, and I congratulate you on becoming a Muslim. And I just pray that all our listeners out there can do the same thing and enjoy a good life the way that you explained it. So thank you for coming on the show, Abdullah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, and may the peace and blessings of God be upon you and also onto all our listeners.
Walaikum assalam.